Hello, everyone. Welcome to the special Vlogmas series of my Live Talk podcast, the Ivory Tower be Ivorying, the show that talks about the dark, unpolished, secret side of higher education. I am your host, Dr. V, a former college professor turned digital creator and full-time entrepreneur. If you want the Cliff Note version of how to make a transition in your life or how to reinvent yourself, check out my complimentary life class at drvernitaglenwhite.com/start-here, and that information will be down below. In today's episode, we will discuss the ins and outs of an article I read on Inside Higher Ed, 8 ways to improve the quality and effectiveness of college teaching. Be sure to listen all the way through to the end. You will hear some great offers and you will be supporting me on boosting my watch time. I would also appreciate your support by hitting those 3 buttons, the like, the subscribe, and the share if something sparked you to do so. And remember, it is free. Sometimes I do have guests on my Life Talk podcast, and you can watch them on my playlist, Women Who Vibe, or From Resume to Reinvention, located on my channel. However, in this series for Vlogmas, it'll just be you and I. The Ivory Tower be Ivory is a special Vlogmas series brought to you by Brilliant Wellness, my e-commerce shop, and let's hear a message from our sponsors. I got into the e-commerce wellness space when I was working as a college professor for several reasons. I wanted a high-quality way to take care of my body when I was traveling to different conferences, speaking, and doing consultant work. I wasn't always eating or sleeping well, and I knew I couldn't keep this up for long before doing some serious damage to my body. The second reason I got into e-commerce was to be able to share with others who trusted me and valued my opinion. I wanted my friends and family to be healthy and also support the environment with natural products. The final reason I got into social sharing and e-commerce was to earn additional income and to help others do the same. I figured since I bought similar products in the past, why not get paid for using them now? I also wanted to help others find a fun and exciting way to earn additional income by sharing products they were going to use anyway. Through Brilliant Wellness, we offer a variety of clean living wellness products such as liquid collagen, our infamous fat-burning pudding, smart coffee, and all things gut health. Also, a variety of household and self-care products. Many of our products are award-winning, high-quality, plant-based, plant-derived, or as clean as they can possibly be. First-time customers get $10 off their first purchase, and they can also get $10 in Live Clean credits to share the love with someone else. The best value is signing up for Smart Ship to save it up to an extra 15% every month. I love Smart Ship because unlike any other subscriptions, you get a chance to change your order every single month without being stuck with the same products. I can go on and on about these items, but check them out for yourself by visiting drvernitaglenwhite.com/wellness or click the description below and see the show notes for more information. All right, so let's get into it. If you are new to me, hi, welcome back. If you're an oldie but a goodie, you've been listening. And just remember, Dr. V has her notes, right? Try to keep these concise and to the point because some of you have been watching it and I want to make sure you watch the whole thing. So I'm going to shrink these down a little bit. All right. So the quality of teacher effectiveness, it has been an ongoing debate in the Ivory Tower, pretty much in all things education. K-12 teaching, that's where I used to work at the college level. In the career space, the quality of training and development has been an issue. And now in this coaching world, it has been an issue, but not as much. People don't really talk about it too much because coaching sometimes is considered like a luxury sometimes. But in the Ivory Tower, the concern has been about, what do they list here? The students not really being motivated, the inadequate feeling of some professors, the dealing with the learning disabilities, the burnout rate, and then just overall decreased satisfaction in the job. Well, these things have taken place well before the pandemic has happened. The pandemic was just like a flashlight or floodlight on a lot of these issues. Things have been going on for decades, especially in higher education. There are a few ways that people try to deal with the quality of teacher effectiveness is through training and development. And that is like my jam. Training and development is my jam, but how it's being done is not so effective. So in the K-12 level, when you have training and development, you have outside people come in and do presentations and things like that. Most people are open to it, but they're just annoyed about when it happens. You know, on a Saturday, and they may or may not get paid for it after a long day of school, or they have to miss their class and get subs for the classroom. So a lot of teachers, they do enjoy learning new things, but it's the timing. Now, higher education is different. You're dealing with people who have their doctorate degrees, years of experience, usually operate in silos. People become professors sometimes because of the academic freedom and the autonomy that they can have in their classrooms. But when a lot of times when you get professors who reach the tenure mark, they are not, going hard in the paint like they used to before they got tenure. So a lot of standards have slipped. I know some professors would just show up with a little card, and that'd be the whole 3 hour class, and they sit there in the front and just talk, talk, talk. And then it's like, well, what are you gonna do? How are you? What are you gonna complain about? That professor has faculty. He hasn't done any harm to kids, and you are supposed to be there to get in where you fit in, right? So when it's time for a professional development, it's really challenging to get professors to be like, hey, we need to talk to you about your teaching. A lot of professors that are outside of the college of education or the profession of education, what they fail to realize is that it's not just about knowing your content, like your subject matter is well beyond that, especially when you're out there teaching other people how to do something. So it's like if you really want to only focus on your content, then maybe you should have gone to the private sector. This article was talking about, well, what is really good teaching? How do we actually define it? Because there are really no measures across a university or even a school. So, I talked about schools and universities, how they operate. Even a school, there is usually no set standard on whether a kid is really learning other than like giving assessments. Because like if you pass the test and say, oh, you must know it, and we all know that is not all the way true. And then when you're talking about, well, you have to do performance-based assessments or evidence-based practices and things like that, those take up a lot of times. Rubrics and things that takes a lot of time. So a lot of professors do just give the test, lecture and give the test, lecture and give the test. When I was teaching, it was more than that. It was a lot of demonstrations because they're about to be teachers. And even when I was teaching the mathematics classroom, I would have students like flip the classroom version where I did a lot of the instructional videos online. You can go watch them. And then when we come to class, whatever you could not figure out or didn't understand, then I would either do the problems or I would watch you do the problems and work through them with you. So it was like we were doing stuff in class. I mean, that didn't happen all the time because sometimes it was like you just gonna listen to me, because sometimes I just needed you there for that direct instruction. But I did vary a lot, and I credit that to my K-12 training, and then that helped me at the college level. Although that wasn't always appreciated because when you have faculty who don't have that K-12 experience and they're used to lecturing, and then you're telling students, hey, I need you to show up and do this work for the next 3 hours, then it's like, oh my gosh, she's not doing her job. So, but I said all that to say there's really no way to know if a student learned a topic. And that's what we're working on, the quality of that. So the reason why I'm bringing this up and why we're talking about this article is because when students go out into the work after they graduate and they go out into the workforce and then they go to get these jobs at these businesses and corporations, they take data on that. And they love to say that new hires coming in are not prepared. New graduates are not prepared for the workplace. So it's like, well, my goodness, well, what are y'all doing in college this whole time? And then a lot of people say, well, you don't really learn the job when you're in college, you learn it when you get there. A lot of that is true, but there is a part where you're supposed to know something before you show up. Otherwise, there's no need for you to to go to college if you're just going to get the job. I do believe the college experience, and now that how if you use it right, it's a wonderful place to be. But if you're just going there just to get a job, and then you have people saying, "Well, you can learn on the job," you can go major in something else, and if they just want you to have a degree. So because they have these different disciplines and degrees, that means they do want you to have some base knowledge. But aside from the base knowledge, it's a lot of skill set, time management, emotional management. What else? Businesses usually complain about people skills, writing skills. So they're like, well, what were y'all doing for the last 4 or 5 years? It's important that universities have some kind of way to show that students are actually learning, because you'll have a lot of people like, I didn't learn that in school. They refer to that in the K-12 space, but they also refer to that in college. Like, I didn't learn any of that in college. And it's like, yes, you did. You did learn it. You were there for 120 hours, at least, like credit hours. Something did sink in, but probably the way it was shown to you came in and let it out. So what some professors were saying is like, well, how much responsibility are y'all gonna put on us? And I felt that. It's like, yeah, I show up, but I can't make you learn. When you're in college, at what point do you take ownership of your learning? That's one way to improve the quality of teacher effectiveness, that leave some of these professors alone. If it was all about the professors, then all the students would be finishing at the same rate. But you have some students who are going to succeed whether the professor is amazing or if the professor is trash. So if you have students who take ownership, like I was one of those students, and I know friends who were like that. And I've had my own students who would be like, I don't know what's going on in this class. I need to get some support. They go find tutoring. They go get lab partners, study buddies. They go try to sit in other classes. They look online. And people say, well, it shouldn't take all that. But if you really want to learn the information, then it does take all of that. And I feel the professors when they're saying, when are universities gonna make sure students are being held accountable for their learning? And a lot of people don't like to upset the students, because I told you, I referenced like the inmates run the jail. Sometimes they don't like to put things on students because the students are the customers, or they're the ones who are paying to be there. So the other part to this is, sometimes people don't realize that teaching is an art and it's a science. It's one thing to stand up and talk to people, to lecture, to give a seminar, to spew out facts. It's another thing to understand the whole person that you're teaching, what they need to know before you open your mouth, what they may already know. How are you going to get them to engage with you, and how are you going to make the content stick, and how are you going to explain the content to a level to where they understand it, or to know, I already know this level, can you now take this to a higher level? All that is supposed to go through your mind when you are teaching someone. In professor land, you can just get up and lecture. And sometimes you just need a lecture. Sometimes you learn a lot from a lecture, and the lecture does what's it's supposed to do, give you the facts, and that's it. Some lecturers are amazing. They get up there, they have charisma, they have the motivation, they keep you engaged. But let's be real, a lot of lecturers are also boring, and they just talk, 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 because they are very gifted in their content, but not in the art and science of teaching, the craft. And unfortunately, it is a dying profession, which I think is interesting because of the coaching space. Well, I'll get more into that after we hear a word from our next sponsor. Dear game changer, life changer, mover and shaker, you have the positions, titles, degrees, and status. You've done all the things, and you've done pretty well for yourself. You're already good, you're already great. Now it's time to be phenomenal. Are you ready to design a bigger life than you can imagine? Are you ready to embrace a new, better side of yourself? Are you ready to expand what's impossible and live bolder? Well, it's time to activate your untapped superpowers. It's time to cultivate what's already inside of you, and it's time to elevate your potential and possibilities. Welcome to the School of Brilliance with Dr. V, a high-end advice company specializing in life transformation for the powerful professional, the elite entrepreneur, and the overall high achiever. We help you create dynamic and custom life plans, business curriculum, or a combination of both to help you expand and dominate every area of your life. Dr. V's mission is to help you embrace your brilliance and expand your life by operating in your true identity. Learn the best ways to work with Dr. V and her brilliant team by visiting drvernitaglenwhite.com/workwithme, or check the description and show notes below. All right, welcome back. So I talked to you a little bit about the things that were happening in the pre-pandemic that are now that people are really seeing in the pandemic about the quality of teaching. Then I talked to you about what really happens of like teaching is an art and a science and a craft. And at the university level, a lot of professors in other disciplines don't really want to hear that. And it can be very challenging to do professional development. I remember when I was working on a project, a grant. I think it was a $3 million grant. And what we noticed was that the reason why a lot of professional development consultants weren't working because you get paid well as a consultant. You come in, do a little song and dance, and you're out. My whole issue with that is, well, what's the follow up? What's the feedback? How do you know that they're implementing it? And that's where a lot of professional development consultants fall off. It is in the follow up and the feedback. So that was my whole thing. I was like, when I consulted, I wanted to be around, unless it's what you just wanted me to do. But I always put it in my contracts, like, I do want to have a follow up. It's important that you have the follow up so I can actually see and give feedback. So in this article, they're talking about, because all consultants don't do that. So in this article, they're talking about different ways to approach faculty development outside of just having somebody come in, do a little song and dance, and then be out. Because then you're sitting there taking notes. You may or may not implement it, or you may implement it for 1 or 2 weeks, and then you're not getting the results, and then you just tuck it away and go back to your old ways. So I'm going to read their ideas of really talking about training in pedagogy and their content, and not just really talking about let's develop you, the professor, because when you hear professional development, it's like, well, what's wrong with me? I'm not developed. And you got to keep in mind, these are content experts. These people have spent well over 10, 15, 20 years mastering their craft. So here's something. It says better training at the doctoral program level. I do agree. It was a little different for me because, again, I had 2 bachelor's degrees, one in secondary education and one in mathematics. And then I have a master's degree in ed leadership, which also has an education component. And then I have a specialist degree in technology management and administration, which has an education component and leadership component. So I was always attached to schools and knowing how to look at the pedagogy of teaching and curriculum design and all of that. However, a lot of my classmates did not have those experiences, especially in the other disciplines. So it's like, well, they've been learning their content, and when it's time to go teach, because some of us had to teach undergraduate as part of our graduate research fellows, or however you want to say it, graduate research assistants or TAs. They were lost. Like, well, what is this? So I do agree that having more training at the doctoral level and building that pipeline of pedagogy is important. The other one said leadership from professional societies. Yes, I was involved in a lot of professional societies. These are your national organizations. I was a part of National Supervisors for National Council of Supervisors of Mathematics, National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, American Associations of College of Teacher Education. I always get them as AACTE because we always say them by the name AERA, the ones at the state and regional level, and of course at the national level. And I have some other ones. Every discipline has a few professional organizations. So they're saying, since these professional organizations are out there and they put on these conferences, that's what they're there for, is to gather and train and develop. Well, what are some things that they can do throughout the year or at the local level to support the quality of teaching? And then it says institutional incentives. So there's a quote I want to read. It says, "Show me," and this was Charles Munger, the vice chairman of the Berkshire Hathaway. And if you know what that is, if you know, you know. He says, "Show me the incentive, and I will show you the outcome." And so he's right. It's like, well, you want me to do something, but what are you going to give me to do that? And people mistake it. They're like, well, you should do this for the profession. I show up for the profession, but now you want me to do something extra. So what are you going to give me? And I have, seriously, like, are you paying me to come here on my time off? Because now you want me to do extra work. And some people may disagree with that, but that's how I felt. At the university level, you can do course releases, or you can have extra funding to do your research. It says, what else can you do? And yeah, and then you can get money to design a course. Like, I got some money to design a course, and that was like, oh, okay. Like, I wanted to do it anyway, but having those extra funds, gave me a little a little boost. This one says demonstration project. I agree. Demonstration project, so that in education, again, this is kind of challenging because I'm like, we do this stuff overall as a profession where practicums, clinicals, students have to get up and actually perform, teaching or video training. It's a lot. They go in the field and do the work. Like medical students do that. Different other organizations. I mean, different organizations. Other disciplines. I'm trying to think what other disciplines do that. Some might be in counseling. I know some of our friends in our larger cohort for our PhD program, they had to actually go counsel people. Of course, they had their professors supervising them, but they had to go and really talk to people. So demonstration, like not just book knowledge, not that you can pass a test or write a paper, but can you actually do this work? The other one is celebrating exemplars. Yes, rewarding excellent teaching. That's one thing, not just giving a teacher award because the students think you're popular, but looking at data, like the students are passing, the students are actually learning, they're retaining the information, you're actually in the classrooms, the design is great, the structure is great, there are different modalities of learning. When you show people this is what a great course looks like, then more people are able to follow. But that's not really shown like that. It's always like, well, this is the teacher of the year, but we don't really know why that teacher is teacher of the year, and especially in higher ed. The other one says sharing resources. That's a given. Like, let me know what you're doing. Like, if I'm struggling in this, what are you doing to get your students to pass or to be more engaged? We did that a lot in K-12, where we I was a measurement, teaching measurement was not my thing. So I will always ask the other teachers, like, let me see your lesson plan for how you're teaching measurement, because your students are always passing and my students weren't. So when I did that, my students started passing, and I was like, why would I wreck my brain trying to figure it out? I was like, I'm great at other stuff, but I don't have it, right? So sharing resources. And then this one says, in the hiring decision, make contributions that the candidate can make teaching mission a higher priority. I agree. Now, if you watch some of the other episodes, I talked about what goes into applying to be a college professor, and part of it is a teaching philosophy. Some people read that and they put it in there, and it's like, okay, you understand, okay, great. But then it's like, are you revisiting that? And is that candidate, now that they are hired, are they actually doing what they said they were going to do in their teaching statement, and does it align to the philosophy of the college or the department or the university? So I think that's important too, because you can make a powerful teaching philosophy and like, oh, we're learner centered, and then you up there talking the whole time. And then professional development 2.0, I won't get too much deep. I won't get too deep into these, but I'll name them off because I thought they were pretty cool. A problem solving model, a shared resource development model, a case study approach, a curriculum development approach, a dramaturgical approach. Now, I will read this one. It says, a group of instructors act out various teaching scenarios and then discuss and evaluate what worked and what didn't work. Oh, okay, we did something like this. It was, I forget the name, but it was a Japanese, it was from Japan. I forgot the name of it, but we did something like that, and it was a huge hit like back in the day. So those are just some things to think about as I wrap this up. And I'll come back with my closing remarks as we hear from our last sponsor. We all have some sort of relationship with money. Some love it, some fear it, some hate it, and some enjoy it, while others see it for what it really is, a tool. I've been in each one of these categories before, but now I can say that I know money is a tool that works for me, and I enjoy telling it what to do. However, it hasn't always been this way. I've always been a great saver and budgeter, but when I became a dualpreneur and then later a full-time entrepreneur, I needed to shift how I thought about money. I no longer had a salary to rely on. I had to start seeing myself as a magnet to money, whether it was going back to a job or staying in my own business. I had to unlearn and learn a lot about money in this new space. I'm grateful for Dr. Tracy, who has been my business coach and now my secret money mindset whisperer. Yes, a mouthful. We have a tight community, but it would be selfish of me not to share this amazing experience. Dr. Tracy is a living example of how money truly is a vibe. Check out her membership using my affiliate link below. I encourage people to go all in for at least 90 days, and then you get to decide if you want to keep going. But this isn't your average community. Dr. Tracy gives so much practical and energetic knowledge that you can't help but to shift your mindset and your relationship with money. Well, if you're open, of course. Check out the Money Mindset membership, and I can't wait to see you on the other side. All right, welcome back. So, out of all of this, and I've shared, it may have sounded like it was all over the place, but it was really saying that this issue of low quality teaching has been around for a long time, not just because of the pandemic. The pandemic, of course, is heightening. But then it's like, well, what is really good teaching, and how can we define that? And then how can we monitor it really? And so the whole thing is, if you're going to say that something is learner centered, meaning having students take ownership of their own learning, then you have to put things in place for students to do that. Universities have to get off some of these professors and saying that they're not doing their job when they're trying to be learner focused. And I think sometimes the fear is, well, if the student isn't doing, if the professor isn't doing their job, standing up there talking or always being, the sage on stage, even though they say they don't want that, but it's like, if you're not doing that, then you're doing something wrong. Then it's like, well, which one do you want? And I had a professor, she was actually on my dissertation committee, and she ended up being dean at the university where I got my PhD. She said, he who does the learning, he who does the talking does the learning. And she said that even before I got my doctoral degree. And I was like, that is true, because if I'm doing all the talking, then I'm just reinforcing what I know, or I'm getting my own aha moments. But if I have my students engaged in conversations, they're taking charge, they get those aha moments. They're the ones engaging with the content. I'm like, I got my degrees. What am I doing? Now, there are times when, a professor intervenes, but if you really want to be learner centered, then that's how you are going to check the quality of your programs and the curriculums and things like that. But as always, I would love to hear from you. Leave your comments down below, and I will engage with them. Let me know your thoughts. What was your experience like learning in higher education? Don't take me back to K-12 because I know some people love to go there, but in college, and were you prepared for your job? And you don't have to tell me your age, but I kind of want to know, like, maybe a roundabout, because I think it's a little different than what's happening now with our graduates and then 10, 15 years ago. All right, so let me know down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, whether you're beginning your day or ending your day, be well, be empowered, be bold, and be brilliant. Until next time, bye.